It's Tuesday, June 30th, and time for your Barbados Today morning news update. An independent physician and the opposition People's Party for Democracy and Development have expressed concern with government's decision to welcome tourists from COVID-19 infected regions without mandatory quarantine or testing on arrival. The officials believe the protocols for the country's reopening, announced by government last Friday, could undo months of work to rid the country of the dreaded virus. PDP spokesperson on health, Paul Gibson, warned that a decision to accept negative tests that were taken 72 hours prior to arrival from cities like Toronto, London, and New York City ran contrary to good science.
You can't measure 72 hours before and don't expect that you may get some viral breakthroughs in patients or in individuals traveling. Right, that person could be at that person could be at day 6 of their viral load increase. Right, What happens on day 7? They're actually infectious, and we don't know. It is a very, they need to go back to the drawing board in terms of that strategy. Something is not scientifically correct, and I don't know who's advising them, but the advice is not sound advice medically. Right, and I think they need to go back to the drawing board. A lot of doctors are concerned. A lot of doctors are also concerned about this in this country.
Family physician Dr. ADRIAN, LORDE, in an interview with Barbados Today, urged public health authorities to better balance the need for economic activity with legitimate health concerns.
Getting a COVID test 72 hours before they travel does not mean that one will not have COVID by the time they travel here, and 2, because COVID-19 can be asymptomatic, the screening that will be done here, I would think that you need to have another test I would recommend they have another test when they come here, to be sure.
Okay.
Quarantine should still be encouraged, whether it be self-quarantine, which would be quarantine in your own environs, or at a government-appointed facility or hotel. In case of persons who are coming in. Of course, if someone is positive, then they have to be isolated at the isolation center at Harrison's. So we will likely see an increase in the number of cases who will come in. But we really can't stop Barbadians from coming, and we need to encourage some commercial activity. So it is a matter of taking a risk.
Scores of stranded travelers in Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean have been left in the dark about how they will get back to their countries as regional governments contemplate the future of intra-regional travel following reports that LIAT would be wrapping up its operations. Our KAREEM Smith has more in this report.
Many travelers were already stranded for months due to regional shutdowns from COVID-19 and had been initially informed that LIAT would be able to resume operations at the beginning of July. But hope descended into despair amid news that the cash-strapped carrier would be liquidated after more than 4 decades. Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, Gaston Brown, first broke the developments over the weekend, indicating that a new entity would be formed and a shareholders meeting would be convened shortly after. Barbados Today understands that Caribbean community heads met in caucus at 3 p.m. on Monday, with intra-regional travel as the main issue on the agenda. The outcome of the meeting is, however, still unclear. In the meantime, a social media page called Caribbean Travel Movement has been calling on stranded CARICOM nationals to air their concerns and has attracted dozens of responses. Many of them are from St. Lucians stranded in Barbados. Among them is Emma Ducasun, 23, whose 2-week trip that started on March 12th was involuntarily extended to 3 months. She indicated that at least 4 other St. Lucians have contacted her, expressing concern about their social, economic, and immigration status in Barbados. Barbados' ambassador to CARICOM, David Comachon, told Barbados Today he was unsure what plans would be made to assist the stranded tourists, while revealing that an emergency heads of government meeting was being held in caucus to discuss all issues of regional travel. Efforts to reach high-level officials late Monday evening for word on the outcome were unsuccessful. KAREEM Smith for Barbados Today.
LIAT 1974 Limited has served the region well despite its financial challenges. That's the view of one of the airline's shareholder governments, Dominica's Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit, as he addressed proposed plans to liquidate the carrier, which owes over $94 million to its creditors and employees. Speaking on his Sunday night radio and television program, Prime Minister Skerrit said Dominica would provide whatever support within its means to any new entity that emerges.
These are extraordinarily difficult times, and there are certain actions which must be taken. But I will say that we will all agree that LIAT 1974 Limited has served Dominica well. We've had challenges in the past with delayed flights or cancellation of flights, but we have to say that LIAT has been good to us, not only in Dominica, but the entire Caribbean. And I am convinced as a regionalist, as an integrationist, that whatever new entity comes up, that the people of Dominica must provide whatever support we can within our means to ensure that we can have intra-regional travel. LIAT has shown its capacity, its abilities, obviously confronting challenges pre-COVID and certainly worsened in the COVID period. And the next step is to have a meeting of the other shareholders so concrete, decisive actions can be taken, and a number of attendant issues that we have to deal with. But let us not give up. Let us not be daunted. We should not be despair. We should not despair at all. In terms of challenges, leadership must step forward.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
To news from the region now. As the Bahamas moves into another stage of reopening its economy, there's a warning that nationals and visitors alike could be fined as much as US $1,000 for failing to wear a mask in public. Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis, in a national address, also outlined various requirements now in place for persons entering the country. More in this report from ZNS News.
Effective the 7th of July, the results of the COVID test must have been taken no later than 7 days prior to the date of arrival. Until that date, tests that have been taken no later than 10 days prior to travel will continue to be accepted. We have made the window of time for testing shorter for the protection of Bahamians and residents. Bahamians and residents returning to the Bahamas from countries where they cannot obtain COVID-19 test may be permitted entry. We want our people to be able to return home. However, they must clearly demonstrate that the test from that jurisdiction was unavailable. They will also be subject to mandatory requirements for 14 days upon arrival in the Bahamas.
The Prime Minister explained that because of the difficulty in obtaining a PCR COVID-19 test result within 3 days, Bahamians and residents returning home from a trip abroad over a period of 72 hours or less are exempted from having to provide a PCR COVID-19 negative test result to re-enter the country. But he said these travelers will have to quarantine for 2 weeks upon their return home.
And finally, on the international scene, China has reportedly passed a controversial security law giving it new powers over Hong Kong. More in this CNN report.
As many critics are saying, this is now the end of one country, two systems, the end of Hong Kong's autonomy, the end of Hong Kong's rule of law. This is a controversial law that we were all expecting. Beijing had said as much. It came through early this morning, according to RTHK, which is Hong Kong's public broadcaster. The National People's Congress Standing Committee passed this very controversial law. And as you say, it will prohibit secession, subversion, terrorism, and collusion with foreign forces. Now, interestingly, just moments after this news broke here in Hong Kong, the city's chief executive, Carrie Lam, was giving her weekly press conference, and she was asked about this, and she refused to make any comment. She refused to even confirm whether or not the law had been passed. Perhaps that suggests that she didn't know that Beijing had made that decision, but she said that it would be inappropriate to comment on this whilst the NPC was still in progress.
That's news. But for the very latest, visit us at www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, or like us on Facebook, and sign up for our breaking news alerts via WhatsApp. We're also on Izumi Media in bus terminals, as well as screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. And you can also hear us on Mix 96.9 FM and Capital Media HD 99.3 FM.